Richards trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derek.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Cody.
What's not to love?
Hola amigos and bienvenidos a Pod Street Bullies. Mi nombre es Derek.
Je m'appelle Jean Gov.
I picked up some Spanish while I was down in Mexico last week, so I hope you guys don't mind. We're going to be speaking a little Espanol tonight.
No, we're not.
No, we're
Well,
not.
John's not. John doesn't
No,
know
we're not.
anything. Neither does
No.
Hoagie. I'm
I
going to
took
speak
4
a little
years
Spanish.
of French, and that's all I got. Je m'appelle Jean Gov.
I
I
took
do
a
know
semester,
The
and
only
I had somebody take tests for me.
Spanish I know is un gato en mi pantalones.
You sound like one of your fourth graders.
You know what that is in Spanish?
Yes. Of
A
course I
cat in
know
my
what it is.
pants.
Anyways,
Hoagie has cats.
Hoagie's with us. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys? This is going to be another rabbit hole type of episode. Like, we couldn't even get the episode started today.
You got
No,
a very
we are-
slim, shady look to you today, Hoagie.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm not sure yet. Ask
In
me
your
in a
case,
few
it's a bad
minutes.
thing.
Should I
Yeah.
grow the mustache to really get it going?
Trying to call me Slim Hoagie.
Slim Hoagie. There it is.
Mhm.
Speaking of, just kidding, it has no correlation. But Matt Casey is not joining us tonight. Matt Casey is on
'Cause
a
he's
ranger
hammer
right
drunk.
now with some
Yeah.
suburban
He's
dads
getting
drinking
weird.
some high noons in the backyard.
Talking
But,
about yachts and stuff of the like.
Oh, I don't even know. what those
Comparing
suburban dads
sweater
talk about.
vests.
There
Right?
you go.
Like mine's got this sweet little pocket on the inside where I can hide my flask from my wife. No, I'm
Right.
kidding.
Do you like
Anyways.
polo or Lacoste?
Well, I prefer Patagonia.
Right.
I like Carhartt.
Well, we know, Hoagie.
And there's Hoagie wearing Carhartt to weddings. Anyways, we're gonna stick with what you guys talked about last week, where we're talking about a few of the guys that we're gonna want to keep, we're gonna want to send away. Not really what we want, but what we think the Flyers are gonna end up doing. Actually, we want to take more of a direct route to that. You can get our opinions and anybody else's opinions anywhere, but we're gonna speak about whether the Flyers should keep these guys, whether they should get rid of them. But first, we're gonna start with this week's action. We had 2 losses and a win this week, so back in the win column, which is awesome, I
Whoa. Yay.
guess. Right? I'm about as excited as I was taking my kid to his second birthday party this afternoon.
Oh, poor Sully.
Poor Sully, that kid screamed in my ear for an hour straight. I don't want to hear it.
Listen, kids suck.
I know. Trust me, I found that out today.
All right. Anyway, Flyer games, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Lose to Edmonton, lose
Shocker.
to Minnesota,
Shocker.
beat Chicago. Like, I know we wanted to bring these things back when we're talking about the games. But I don't even know what you want from me at this point. It's like we sucked against Edmonton. That game looked terrible.
They won the game they were supposed to win,
Right.
and that was it.
Well, I mean, are they supposed to win any of them at this point? It was the most winnable game.
Yeah, and they won, which is good. But that Edmonton game, I didn't watch a second of it. That was the night that my buddy got married. I was following it, and I just after the second goal, I was like, screw this. Minnesota game, I thought they looked competitive, I should say. Now, it's demoralizing that every time they score, they give up a goal 10 seconds later, but what are you going to do?
As is tradition.
Exactly.
Right.
We're so used to it by now. It's like,
So far away.
But they lost those first 2 games. They beat Chicago. They actually, I'll tell you what, there's a lot to really talk about, for me at least, with the Chicago game, because there were some things I saw that I really enjoyed, But I mean, general thoughts on this. I'll go to you first. You first, John.
I mean, I kind of gave them. You know,
Right.
I don't know. I just honestly at this point, like we're at the point in the season already where it's we've been there where it's like if we play competitive, it's essentially a win.
Mhm.
Right? Like if we look like we know how to play the game of hockey somewhat, then it's a win for us. Which, like, I get it. You got to take the little victories, but I don't know. It just sucks, and I'm tired of grading on that kind of scale.
It's a bad curve.
Yeah.
You're great on a terrible curve. What are some of your takeaways, Hoagie?
To be honest, I don't even remember the Oilers in the Wild game. It's just every loss is just so demoralizing that I just go to bed pissed off and I just forget about the games. But
How
I mean,
are you still going to bed? And I mean this seriously. Like, how are you even getting pissed off at this point? Like, I'm numb to this team.
that's a great word. You're numb. You're numb to it. Like you want to be pissed off, but you're more like that's
Right.
that's
I'd give
bull.
anything
I
to be
should just
pissed
expect.
off.
Right.
A lot of us are
expect it.
disinterested.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you want the team to win, obviously. They're our favorite team. They're the team that we talk about every week on this show for an hour. You know, it's no fun talking about a team that sucks. But at the same rate, then you see these performances like they had against Chicago, even to an extent what they had against Minnesota, because again, that game, they looked decent and they were competitive in that game. And you're seeing, you want to see the team win first and foremost. But if you can't see the team win, you're looking for any type of positive you can take away from these games. Lindblom has been on a tear over the past, what was it? I think Jim from High and Wide put in the group chat. He's had 10 points or something like that over the last 18 games, which is sneaky good. I really didn't think that Lindblom was putting up those types of points, but hey, here we are. That's good news considering where he came from and the lackluster year he had last year, along with the beginning of this year. Sanheim hammering down on DeBrincat, like who taught him that? I mean, I'm serious. Where's that?
Right.
Hey, then you know, it's this chicken or the egg argument. Everybody wants to poop on Risto, but I mean, maybe Risto's having quite the impact on Sanheim. But again, discussion for much farther down the line. But that was
minutes.
Isn't that
Yeah, right.
I mean, that was my big takeaway, though, is seeing that fire from Sanheim. And it's something we've wanted to see out of him all year. And he's just, in my opinion, and maybe I'm going to sound like a dumbass here, but what's new?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. He's a bit inconsistent. And seeing that from him, if we saw that consistently, I think he'd be as good as a lot of the guys out there that want to convince us that he's the best defenseman we have. He could be. He could be if he played like that consistently.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just Sanheim smashing DeBrincat's head into the ice. It's the whole team, that whole scrum. You love to see that. Like, it wasn't like a malicious thing towards Jones yesterday during the Blackhawks game. It was just guys skated too close to the goalie, and it just erupted. Like, that's what we've been wanting to see for the past year and like the past couple of seasons, where they've had no fight together as a team. No one sticks up for each other. But yesterday, everybody was grabbing guys and just wrestling to the ice. You love to see it.
It's just a little too
That was a chippy game. Like, I haven't seen the Flyers have a chippy game like that in a long time. And that was refreshing to me.
Right. I mean, the beginning of the year, we had a few chippy games. And then, you know, and then it died. Right.
And then it died. But, I mean, every single game with the Capitals lately, it's just like a powder keg ready to explode. I think the Capitals are now like the Penguins of like 10 years ago, to be honest.
And we play them well. Like,
it is well.
And it's really funny that you even said that, Hoagie, that it's like the Penguins, you know, of 10 years ago, because we don't show up against the Penguins anymore.
Right.
And it almost is like the Capitals are our new arch rivals. And that's the team that we're going to put on, you know, our best performance.
Good.
Yeah.
You really do see it. Like, the Caps are the one team that I know the Flyers are going to show up for. And, like, I don't know. Like, are the Penguins taking that much of a back seat to a team like the Caps? And even in my opinion, like, I'm really starting to hate the Rangers. And not even start, but I've hated the Rangers for a few years now.
Living in New York, join the freaking club.
Yeah, even like the Island. Like I dislike, I should say, other teams more than the Penguins recently, and like I feel like I'm almost betraying my Flyers fandom by saying that.
Well, I also think, I mean, and this is more of just a sports discussion. I feel like rivalries in sports have kind of died down in general, too. You know what I mean? Like, remember growing up, it was like the Yankees and the Red Sox. I could care less about either of those teams, but when you threw on a baseball game with those two in it, you knew it was going to be something.
Oh yeah,
right? Like think of right basketball games, the Lakers and the Celtics. You know, the Heat and the Knicks. These games where it was like you knew, even if you didn't like the team, this was going to be an entertaining matchup. Most of these teams, I couldn't even list their current rivals anymore. It's just not a thing.
Right.
Well, the Flyers have become borderline irrelevant at this point.
Right.
So
when
like,
they suck,
who views the Flyers as a rival at this point? You know,
right, the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, like the Devils. You know, I hate the Devils too. God, I hate the Devils because they beat us still, and they're just as bad, if not worse, than the Flyers.
But that's what sports is about. You're supposed to hate everybody else.
Yeah, but where is that with the players? Like what we saw against Chicago is what we should be seeing against.
Everybody's friends now.
Look, I like you guys. We've done this podcast for a long time. But if I'm on a team and you're on a rival team, we're not friends for 60 minutes. Like afterwards, we'll go out, we'll have a drink. That's fine. But if like one of you guys touched my goalie, I'd beat the piss out of you or try to.
Yeah, I just think it's different though. Like, you know, you have everybody trying to convince everyone to join their teams. Hey, come down here. You know, I think that the logo on the front of a jersey or a sweater doesn't mean as much as it does as the one on the back. And I think that that's changed in sports, right?
It's the NBA effect.
Right. Yeah. But even, even the NBA, it wasn't like that. You know, in the 90s, growing up, at least for me, right, you had these players that bled the team that they were on. And I just feel like in any sport, like who would have thought Jack Eichel, right, would be wearing a different sweater than a Buffalo Sabres sweater? It just doesn't. It never used to happen.
Yeah. No one sees Giroux wearing another sweater other than the Flyers. But I mean,
we've really dove into it, but.
Hey, we're making this episode a little bit longer.
That's the point, man. We got to keep people entertained. Yeah. But going back to this past week, the Blackhawks game, I think, was their best showing of the week. You could argue Minnesota, but because they got the win against Chicago, I should say, that to me, more games like that. That's all I want to see. Just play competitive, sneak out a couple wins. We're not going to get the number one pick. We're not going to tank and end up in the bottom of the barrel.
I'm cool with winning one out of every, 3.
Yeah, I can live with that. At this point, given the circumstances,
that's how it's going to be for the rest of the season, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to be honest with you. When the trade deadline hits and all that's done, I really have lost all interest in in this current season. Like once that's done, what do we even have to look forward to?
The end of the season. I'll watch the playoffs, but I've got no skin in the game. Like I don't care who wins as long as it's not Tampa again,
right?
Or Pittsburgh. Anyways, part of the bigger discussion here, like you guys were talking about last week with a select few players, what we want to do today is go through some defensemen. We want to talk about, first and foremost, we have Justin Braun and we have Rasmus Ristolainen as well. Two guys on the blue line whose names have come up in discussions with some of the big guys like Elliot Friedman. You've got Ant Sanfilippo, who's kept us up to date with what's going on with Ristolainen and what he's heard. So I figure if you guys are okay with this, what we can do is kind of start with Justin Braun because there's not a ton of substance to it aside from like one or two things mentioned. And then from there, we get to the bigger discussion with Ristolainen because there's really a lot to unpack with that situation and what's going on with him and what could potentially be happening with him.
Okay.
So let's get down to it. Justin Braun, you've got a right-handed defenseman, plenty of playoff experience, 100 games like on the dot. And you're looking at a guy who is on an expiring deal, $1.8 million a year, perfect candidate to be a rental for a third pairing at the trade deadline. Righties always come at a premium. We saw what happened last year with David Savard, ended up getting 75% of his cap taken up by 2 teams, and Tampa Bay ended up only having to pay him a quarter of his salary. They had to give up a first and a third and a fourth to Detroit for retaining salary. But regardless, are we looking at Justin Braun and saying this is a guy that we should actively pursue to send him away in the trade market? I'll start with you, Hoagie.
Absolutely.
I started with
He's
you
gonna
last
be a
time,
guy.
John. Save it.
No, absolutely. He's going to be a guy that's going to help shore up a Stanley Cup contender team. He's not going to go to a team like we've talked about with the Drew. He's not going to go to a team that's like needs to get over that bump. He's going to go to a team that's like already there and is just going to help shore someone's defense up and be a leader in the room to help.
Well put, John.
I mean, I think I've said this before, because I don't think I said it on my other podcast that I don't have. Justin Braun is going to be the one trade where Flyers fans are happy with the return. Because I think in our minds, we value him as like, all right, I mean, like, what would you spend for a Justin Braun, a third pairing defenseman? But in this trade market, right, I think you could get like a second round pick for him and be happy. I'd be ecstatic for a second round pick for Justin Braun. You know, so the Flyers would be stupid to hold him because you are going to get a value that you just wouldn't really fathom, I think, in any other situation. You're looking at a guy who, yes, best slotted as a third pair, but if an injury happens, he has proven that he can hold his own for a small amount of time, you know, higher up in the defense. So, yeah, I mean, he goes. It'd be crazy if he didn't.
Absolutely. I mean, I look at it too, and, you know, I base a lot of what I'm going to say on that Savard deal last year. Oh. No, that's, you know, worth its weight in gold. But anyways, second, absolutely. I think Justin Braun gets you a second round pick. Is it completely out of the realm of possibility that he gets you a first round pick from a team that knows they're going to be picking later in the first round? I have a hard time saying no. I mean, look at Savard's contract. He was making, what, $5 million or something like that, around that? Okay. And Braun's making a third of that. So right then and there, the fact that he's only making 1.8 or 1.6? I think it's 6.
1.8. It's
1.8. Okay. He's making $1.8 million. Oh, man. Okay. Hoagie's
put all this work in. You guys.
So upset that we don't read the ticker at the bottom.
I get it, though, because I was always that. And then you guys were like, I don't pay attention to that. And I was just like, screw it. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. And now Hoagie does it.
I still don't pay attention to it.
No, $1.8 million cap hit. He can play up the lineup if need be on that second pair. I definitely don't see him on the top pair on a contender. But it's not completely out of the realm of possibility.
If he had to, but sorry.
I'm boring you.
Yeah, I think it's the whiskey. It's not you, but
no, but I mean, to the main point here, absolutely. I think he's getting dealt at the trade deadline, and I do think that it is in the Flyers' best interest to do so because, much to John's point, it's the one deal I think all Flyers fans are going to look at and say, absolutely, that was a good return.
Yeah.
All right. Any other?
The team that's interested in just searching real quick is actually the Oilers, which would be really interesting.
That is interesting
because they're on the bubble. They're not even in a playoff spot.
Maybe they'd be interested in one Martin Jones.
Well,
package him, sure.
Yeah,
that absolutely gets you a first, in my opinion.
See, but I think what's the GM's name? Is that Holland over there? In Edmonton. I know, Hoagie. I was just kind of throwing that question around, you know, just for dialogue's sake, but it is Holland.
Sure.
Rhetorical question.
Yeah. I think he came out, and it was a while ago, but he kind of said he had no interest in trading his first round pick. So I really, even if you throw Martin Jones in there, I don't know, to go off and say I'm not going to trade it and then trade it away for that combo.
Yeah.
You know.
Crazy things have happened.
Yeah, you know,
We'll take Jesse Puljujarvi off his hands.
Yeah, sure. There it is. Spoken like a true Flyer fan.
Right?
And
Just give us McDavid.
What does that
McCullough,
matter?
right? Heard Draisaitl wants out of town too. Why not? Throw him in there.
Stop it with Draisaitl.
Yeah. I know.
I'm tired of that talk.
Nah, Braun is good as gone at the deadline. Flyers would be ridiculous to not make that deal given the market for that. Getting into, any more points, Hoagie? It looked like you had something to say.
You get rid of Justin Braun, you're able to slide in a young defenseman into Cam York or somebody else, Zamula, one of those, and you get to see what you actually have in them in meaningless hockey games.
Well, and I could see somebody also throwing out that argument where it's like, but wouldn't you want to have a Justin Braun for next year? Like, you could go out and grab another Justin Braun.
Absolutely.
Right. He's extended to stay, which I hate to say, but his purpose for the Flyers is done.
Right. Especially if it wasn't for Matt Niskanen retiring, he wasn't going to stay on this team anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember when they signed him to that deal, it was like, they announced it the same day.
I think it was like a half an
a couple
hour
days,
before,
right?
Like Niskanen called him and said, "Hey guys, I'm done." And the next phone call was to Justin Braun and said, "Hey pal,
hey Justin,
how you
remember
doing?
We told you to go packing? Well, we were kidding.
I hope you're not done packing your suitcase."
Right.
No, I think it'd be a good move. I think it's absolutely worth making. But we get to another defenseman here that has been the topic of discussion as of the past God knows how long, few weeks, in regards to at least the trade deadline. But Rasmus Ristolainen, another right-handed defenseman, big guy, a lot to unpack here with what's going on and the rumors swirling around him. Just, being brief, first it was reported that, 6 years, $6.3 million extension by Anthony Sanfilippo at Crossing Broad. Ristolainen turned that down. Then it comes out, Elliot Friedman says his value would be higher in the playoffs and he wants to go to a contender, which no shit. Then he goes to say that the Flyers feel that they're low on NHL caliber defensemen. Again, no shit. And they're going to try to work out an extension. So it's like a lot of conflicting reports here. A lot of, obvious statements being made considering the fact that the Flyers are low on NHL caliber defensemen. And who wouldn't want to go to a contender at this point? If you're Chuck Fletcher, John, what's the move you're most likely to make and what's going to be best for this team considering Rasmus Ristolainen in his situation?
Well, I think there are different answers to certain parts of the question that you just posed my way. If you're Chuck Fletcher, right, you want to re-sign Ristolainen because if you don't, you look like a buffoon, right? You just traded that big old package for a guy you're not even going to keep for a full season. That looks like a major loss, and it's one that people are not going to let go.
Mm-hmm.
People are going to continue to talk about it, and it's going to stick with him as one of the bigger mistakes that he made. Mm-hmm. Whether or not it's deserving is a whole different topic of conversation for a different day, maybe not even a day. But regardless, right, he wants to re-sign him. Mm-hmm. Best for the organization, I'm a little hesitant giving this guy $6.5 million for 6 years. Mm-hmm. That's a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And what are we really basing it on? He did have down years in Buffalo. He's looked good in Philadelphia, and I like him with the Flyers. I'd like to keep him. But that's a commitment for a team that still really has no idea what direction they're going in.
You think about it too, and Hoagie, I'll ask you here in a second. You're already investing $6.5 in Provorov for quite some term. Also, almost the same exact numbers with Ellis. And then Sanheim is due for an extension after next season. And if they're planning on keeping Sanheim, because if that pairing still works out, again, topic for another day here. But if they want to keep him, I guarantee you Sanheim's going to want about that type of money. So, right then and there, average it out, you're looking at probably close to $25 million invested in your top four.
Right.
Well invested? Depends on the results. We don't know what Provorov
not
and
right
Ellis
now.
look like.
It wouldn't be.
No. Now, if Provorov and Ellis turn out to be the bona fide top pair that we all thought that they were going to be, maybe.
Right.
if Ristolainen and Sanheim rediscover that, that magic that they had earlier in the season, that chemistry that they had, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
It all remains to be seen. But a lot of money to invest in a guy like that. Hoagie, I apologize if I took some of your points there.
I mean, the $6.5 million cap hit is scary because, and especially for 6 years, we don't know where this team's going. But I think if you do extend him for Philadelphia, it's shoring up our top four. Like that, this is the core defensive group that we want to go with.
Yeah.
To that point, though, that kind of blocks a Cam York or a Zamula trying to fit into that mix there.
But does it though, Hoagie? And I want you to keep going, but maybe this, because could you then say you don't re-sign Sanheim, York slides in up there?
Well, didn't Sanheim sign the deal before the season started?
Well,
He's on
no,
the books
yeah,
past
but from
next year. Or past
isn't it
this
just
year.
it's just one more? Yeah. So what I'm
Yeah.
saying is Sanheim plays one more year in that role.
Mhm.
Clearly, they're
Right.
still on the fence with York, right? Give him one more year to then slide in to pair up with.
Right.
I still don't know
Ristolainen.
how they're on the fence about that kid, but
That's also a conversation for a different thing. That's what we're going to title this.
I mean, conversations for different days. I mean, no, I get it. It's confusing because I mean, I like what Ristolainen brings to the lineup. I'll kind of speak for Casey here. He brings the grit, the tenacity of a Philadelphia Flyer that we've all come to love and see on the ice.
Mhm.
I mean, some of his defensive minded plays aren't the smartest, but I mean, we need a player in the lineup like a Ristolainen. So they'd be smart to sign him again. I hate the number, that 6.5. That's just a big number for that middle type of guy who's going to be a liability sometimes.
now with that number that they threw out there, though, and if they are still negotiating, if that is in fact true, that's a starting point for Ristolainen now. If that number remains true and that's what was proposed, I don't see him signing for anything under 6.3 now. Like, unless something drastically changes and he completely craps the bed by the end of the year, hurts his stock enough that it's like, dude, we can't pay you that anymore. Like,
Right.
I think they kind of doomed themselves going that far over what his current cap hit is. And now it's like, Risto, all he has to say is, hey, I played the same way then as I do now, and 6.3 isn't going to cut it then. It's not going to cut it now. Does Chuck then look at that and actually open up his checkbook and write him a check for more than that?
I mean, we're talking $7 million.
Or
I
more.
wouldn't necessarily say 7, but like over 6.3. Let's go, for argument's sake, he offers him 6.75.
Honestly, I'm capped at 6.5, and I'd have a hard time with the 6 years attached to that.
Right.
Now, bringing this up, would it change your mind if I told you about guys like Chara, guys like Bufflin, guys, even if you want to consider like Brent Burns, like big defensemen? I wouldn't even put Brent Burns in the physical defenseman, but big physical defensemen take a bit longer to quote unquote develop. Could you see Ristolainen being somewhat of a late bloomer considering the time that he spent in Buffalo and how just terrible that was?
Except that Dustin Bufflin's leg fell off and he's not even in the league anymore.
Yeah, but at one point, Dustin Bufflin was considered
Sure,
not like a premier defenseman, but one of the good ones. You know what I mean?
So all right. So let's dive down this a little bit deeper. Say we have 6 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we assume at some point that big body, because not everybody's like Chara, where the guy's going to be able to play until he's 100. We assume that big body, yeah, he'll develop a little later, but then it's going to take a toll on him. Are we looking for, 6 years, 3 years of top-notch play, and then 3 years of who the hell knows? Like,
if we haven't seen his top-notch play, but we know what he's capable of, could be a risk that's worth taking.
See, I think that this is Ristolainen. I really do. I don't think there's going to be much more to this. Like, yeah, get ebbs and flows depending on how the team's performing and stuff, but I don't really think it's going to get much better than this.
So let's dive down another one here. Ryan Ellis comes back.
Yeah.
Or let's say he doesn't even come back. He's just out of the lineup.
Oh, good.
And you don't have a Justin
great.
Braun to put with Ivan Provorov.
Right.
You put Ristolainen up there on the top pair with Provorov, and they turn out to be a pretty damn good first pair.
Sure.
Is it worth the investment then?
Yeah, but where's the security in thinking that's going to happen?
There isn't right now, but it really, I mean, what? They had a handful of games, if that, together. Like, it's still in my mind at least, I think it's still a possibility. But this team, it's so tough to say anything with certainty at this point because the way this team has played this year, injuries, all that crap, you know?
I don't know. I just feel like if you're going to commit what you would most likely have to commit for Ristolainen, especially with that 6-year term, like, you have to do it knowing that you're looking at a second pairing guy. I really don't think that he's a top pairing defenseman on a good team, which, I mean, if you're going to sign him for that long, you're hoping you're going to be a good team by that point.
Aren't we all?
You know? But the question I wanted to pose to the two of you, because this is the way that I look at it, trade deadline is coming up. I feel like there has to be something done with him. So if they don't trade him, it needs to be with the news of an extension, right?
Absolutely.
Like it can't be like with hopes of re-signing him this summer.
I think it's going to be similar to what we saw with Scott Lawton last trade deadline, where we signed him on the day,
right?
Like hours before like he cut off. Like, I think they might shop him, or they might shop him, see what they can get in return. I don't think they're going to get what they paid for him,
Right?
And Chuck will be like, I'm about to shoot myself in the leg and sign the paper, sign this contract type of deal.
I mean, at that point, you're looking at Chuck doubling down on not necessarily, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but he's doubling down on his decision to give that type of deal for him. I mean, you paid a first-round pick, was it a third-round pick also, and Robert Haig.
Was there a second round?
Second round. It was
a first and second.
Yeah, it's 2021 first round, 2023 second round, and Robert Haig.
That's right. So hefty price
ESPN,
nonetheless.
Robert Hogg.
Robert Hogg, yeah.
Good old ESPN.
Dumbasses. You're not going to get anything near that in a return for Ristolainen.
Right.
You know, so
Especially at the deadline.
Yeah. And I completely agree with Hoagie's point. I think that if an extension is going to happen, it's going to happen either the day before or the day of the deadline. But either way, something needs to happen. You can't just let this guy contract expire.
You can't. No.
Yeah.
I mean, you think Flyers fans are pissed now.
Oh, my God, yeah. The people that hate Ristolainen are going to absolutely hate him if that happens.
I also think, though, like re-signing Ristolainen, you not only have to count on him continuing to impress on the ice, you also need to count on Ryan Ellis getting healthy again. Because if he doesn't get healthy and come back, that Ristolainen contract, that Ristolainen on the team turns into a Buffalo thing. Where he's now going to play in a place where he just shouldn't be.
Exactly.
So, but
Philadelphia Sabres.
Look at all the players on the Flyers right now that are playing in positions that they're not suited for. I mean, what was it? Scott Lawton was centering the first line.
Right.
Watch your mouth.
I mean, look, Hoagie, I love Scott Lawton. I'll be the first to tell you I do love Scott Lawton. I love the fact that he is a Swiss Army knife for this team, and he can contribute up and down that lineup. But if you're telling me at Optimum Flyer that Scott Lawton is your 1C, there's a much bigger problem at play.
No, he doesn't belong there. I love that he's there.
He belongs on the wing, first and foremost, but regardless.
Yeah.
So what happens with Scott Lawton? Let's make some decisions. Not Scott Lawton, damn it. Rasmus Ristolainen. What happens with him?
He's getting extended.
Hoagie?
Yeah, he's getting
Really?
extended. I think so.
Disagree wholeheartedly. I think he's going to get traded.
Where do you think he's going to go?
I have no idea. That wasn't part of the exercise.
You don't
Now it
even
is.
know what the exercise is half the time.
Sure, I
You don't
do. I
even
helped.
read the homework.
There was no homework. You didn't create a rundown for this one.
You
Yeah,
don't look
stop
at it
that.
anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. But-
Think about it this way, though. Like Chuck Fletcher now is committed to Ristolainen. That's his one like pretty big deal. I'm not even going to count Ellis as like a big deal because you gave away peanuts for him.
Sure.
So, whatever. Phil Myers, Nolan Patrick don't care anymore. You've married yourself essentially to this Ristolainen deal. So you're committed to making this work. And
Okay.
if you're Chuck Fletcher,
Mhm.
John Hoagie, are you going to be so reluctant to try to see what you can get for him? Or are you going to say, nope, putting my foot down, I'm making this work. We're going to figure out a way to make sure that Ristolainen is successful in a Flyer sweater.
Sure, but you also have to realize too that like Chuck Fletcher is going to look at this and go, but I also need to allocate money elsewhere in order to make this team competitive by next year, which my boss has told me essentially in front of everyone that I need to do. And although Ristolainen helps to solve some of the problem, there is going to be a part of Chuck Fletcher and anybody else who's involved in this decision and go, if I commit this amount of money to Rasmus Ristolainen, what am I going to do with the rest of the roster? Because I have to bank on being able to clear up a lot of other cap space from elsewhere. I just think that the number that the Flyers would feel comfortable signing him for is not going to be what Ristolainen thinks he can get on the open market.
So let's go this route.
Mm-hmm.
Claude Giroux, in my mind, is as good as gone.
Yep.
Right then and there, that's 8.275 off the books.
Sure.
Ristolainen's 5.4 grows to, let's say, 6.5.
Okay.
Right then and there, you're still gaining 7 and some change. So you're gaining essentially another Hayes type contract through that. Because Claude Giroux, if he does come back, isn't coming back at 8.275. Don't
Sure.
think he comes back regardless. So you still get a little over $7 million in cap space. Again, external variables at play here. You have that money now to address your forward depth, to address maybe bringing in a guy. Maybe you spend it all in one place and you bring in a guy who's a competent top 6 guy, if you can find somebody for that type of money, which I think you can.
Right.
So you still address 2 needs there, because the biggest need coming out of last season was cutting down on goals, cutting down on the goals being scored against you. And I think Ristolainen does that. I don't care what your heat maps say. I don't.
I don't have any heat maps.
No, I don't care what anyone's heat maps say.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a weather map
To
at that
be
point.
honest, this entire team hasn't done that. So
You're right.
that point
It's
is-
been worse than last year. It sucked. But partnering that and putting it with Giroux's absence and Giroux's looming trade, in my opinion, you still end up with an extra $7 million in cap space that you can look towards building your top 6 potentially, or you split it and you go for 3 or 2 guys that are going to be solid contributors in your middle to bottom 6.
Sure. Okay. But then let's go this way. Hoagie, you're Rasmus Ristolainen. Okay. I'm your agent. I go, Rasmus, listen, the Flyers, they're going to give you 6.5. I think you could get that on the open market if if this is you, right? If you just play this way, the team that you're with, maybe wins a round or not. But if you get traded and you win a Stanley Cup, that ain't 6.5 anymore, because they pay
That's
for
it.
cups.
yeah,
Now we're talking 7.5. You're telling me that that's not going to make Ristolainen go, yeah, sorry, Chuck. I mean, listen, freaking Calgary paid Blake Coleman, first line center money because he won 2 Stanley Cups, not because he's worth that kind of money. Really wasn't first line center money, but you know what I mean? People get paid more because of the hardware. Which
Who are your teams that are going to pursue him then? Like who are the legitimate teams that you look at that you can say with certainty that they have a 100% chance of, if not winning the Stanley Cup?
could Toronto?
Toronto?
I mean, I don't know if the money works. I mean, I honestly haven't gone that deep into things. I don't. But
they have
Toronto
3.6 in current cap space. Their projected cap space is $91,000.
Okay.
So name another one.
I don't know.
Let's play this game.
But regardless though, that is I'm sure somebody would find a way.
Yeah.
And even if it's like a Minnesota, they have a better chance of winning the Stanley Cup than the Flyers do.
You're right.
You know,
Minnesota
what if they
also
catch
has 2 current cap space. They've got 7.6. They could make that work.
Right. I just think for most teams that are going to make the playoffs, you could say to Ristolainen, what if it's even just to the Western or Eastern Conference Finals, right? If he's able to make a name for himself in the playoffs, his value will go up. And that's what this is all about.
Right.
You're right.
I know.
I agree.
I know. I'm right.
We get it.
Okay, good.
So
I'm sure
Derek,
of myself.
Derek, I know I see you looking down at your phone. You're seeing the comments that we're not that we don't get through the StreamYard. WAB61 is saying you can't pay Risto more than your first pairing guys. As in Ellis and
which is true.
Provorov. Right.
Absolutely true. But that's not to say that these problems with Ryan Ellis and his injuries don't persist. If they do persist into next year, which God willing, I hope they don't, who's to say Ristolainen isn't your top pair guy with Provorov?
Well, then you run into the same issue as Buffalo.
Right.
Is it an issue?
He's not a top.
Maybe he's not. I mean, I don't know. I think Buffalo's a completely different animal than what we're talking about right now.
They suck? Because look at this team.
That team did.
Yeah, the Flyers are trending in the same direction.
Well, they are. They are trending in the same direction. But the thing is, you've got, right, if you want to actually put faith in what Dave Scott told us in that press conference a month or so ago, which, again, take it with a grain of salt. If they've got a blank check and Dave Scott is actually committed to making this work and putting a competitive team on the ice, and he can do so.
It's a salary cap league.
Yeah.
Look,
so blank checks mean jack.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're not going to start blank check.
Derek, I love you, buddy. I love you, buddy. And I know you're passionate about this side of things. There are just more reasons to trade this guy. That makes sense.
Are there?
Listen, I would love this. I would love him to sign a contract with the Flyers. He makes sense.
Me too.
For the second pairing.
Mm-hmm. No.
But to that extent, if Ellis goes down and we have to put him on our first line or first pairing, it's just not going to work.
Okay, then what if we find out Provorov isn't first pair material? We want to put him down on the second pair.
He's starting
to trade his ass.
Yeah, and he's starting to trend to the point where he's not
in these coming weeks.
Right. I mean, that is definitely a conversation for a different day.
So why not put Ristolainen with Ellis, a more proven defenseman?
Absolutely not.
No,
why not?
Because Rasmus Ristolainen is not a first pairing defenseman. That's why. Because if you're putting Rasmus Ristolainen on the first pair, then you are failing as an organization. You are not where you want to be. So it doesn't matter who you put him there with. You could put him there with the Wayne Gretzky or the freaking blue line. He shouldn't be there.
Understood. But now, back to your point.
Which
bear with
one?
me here. God knows, because you try to make a million of them. You're talking about, let's say Rasmus Ristolainen gets traded, goes somewhere, wins the Stanley Cup, and then he gets a contract for $7.5, $8 million. You're going to pay a guy $7.5, $8 million to play on your second pair?
I mean, what did they just throw Darnell Nurse money? You know, didn't
That's
he
Edmonton.
just?
That's
okay,
Edmonton. They
but
threw money
somebody,
at God knows who.
But
Jesus.
somebody is going to pay him way more than he's worth, and then they're going to regret it. That's how hockey works. I don't want it to be the Flyers.
No, I don't either.
And Ristolainen is going to take advantage of the market, as he should as a player. It just makes sense.
It does.
To at least give you the chance to increase your value.
No, I completely agree with everything you're saying here. I do.
Right.
I like playing devil's advocate because I like
No, I
getting
know.
you guys riled up. But I'm a firm believer that I still think he can help this team, but it's got to be for the right price. And the Flyers probably won't get that because he's going to go to a team where he thinks he's going to be better suited for the playoffs. I think his style of play is way more conducive to the playoffs than it is to the regular season, but we don't know that because he's never made the playoffs.
I was going to ask, has he ever seen any postseason action?
No.
590 NHL games over 9 years, and he has never seen a playoff game.
Buffalo hasn't made the playoffs since, I don't know, since Hector was a pup.
Yeah.
So you
been
just
a
brought
while.
in a great thing there, Derek, because earlier you were saying, he needs to develop more. He's been in the league 9 years. What more do you have to develop?
Hold on. I didn't say he needed to develop. I did not say that he needed to develop.
No, you said that. No, he didn't say needed to develop. If I think that you're talking about the same moment that Derek talked, it was when he was saying bigger defensemen develop later, or like reach their
Bigger
peak
defensemen-
later.
They reach their peak later. You don't see we all thought,
There is
everybody,
a difference, Hoagie. A little
There's-
difference.
yeah.
slight difference,
A
but
little-
I will
a
harp on that
slight.
difference just so I can shut you up. No, I don't think. Yes, Hoag's Lover 74 can confirm. Did not say developed. There it is. Thank you. Anyway, no,
Hoag's
but
Lover.
to your
I
point,
love it.
I get where you're coming from there because obviously I could probably take it that way too. But Ristolainen's done quote unquote developing, and God
Right.
knows the term player development to a Flyers fan what that means right now. But
That's because we didn't develop him.
I use the term blossom into he could blossom into a better
There you go.
defender.
I like it.
Uh-oh, the kid's crying. Oh
Who,
man,
Hoagie?
My
Scream
kid.
at him or what?
Oh,
that kid's been crying all day. God.
I mean, also like 6 years is just that's a term that I don't really love anyway.
We haven't even talked about term. Like we spent all this time
Right.
talking money, and now we're talking. Yeah, get into
You know,
the term.
like right.
Yeah.
34 years old by the end of the deal. It is a. I think every long-term contract, right? You expect 1 or 2 years where they're not playing at the number that you signed them to, right? I mean, it should be expected. There are very few players that play out the duration of a long-term contract, and it's like, well, they earned every single cent for every year. But I don't know. 6 years just seems like a little too much to me to be
I look at it
comfortable.
this way. I'm 6'1". I'm about probably 175, which is about
Freaking beanpole is what
45
you are.
pounds. I'm 45 pounds lighter than him and 3 inches shorter. I'm also 4 years older. But good God, the way I feel after taking a walk around the neighborhood, I can't imagine what this guy's going to feel like at 34 when he's been carrying around 45, 50 pounds more than me playing hockey.
This is
every
really,
other
really
night.
weird comparison.
I'm just saying.
All right, I'll weigh in.
This is to your point. You should agree with this.
Same age. Okay,
I'm
yeah,
the
but you're not a
same
professional
age.
hockey player.
I pretend to be.
Okay.
All right, you're right.
So
You do
Hoagie-
pretend to be.
Hoagie brought up a good point here in our group chat. Was this a DM on Twitter?
Yeah.
So this smart bird is who it was. I'm not 5'10". Shut up. Trade Risto. His replacement will come from the defenders we get from trading G and Konechny. Could they?
I mean, I'm going to stick
What
with
the
the
fuck?
whole, Claude Giroux is not going to get us that caliber of a on-ice NHL player, but maybe I'm all for it flipping Konechny for somebody who could take that role, and it's possible.
Pierre LeBrun
They're saying
believes
LeBron.
Pierre LeBron
Ron.
has said that he believes it could be a 3-piece package for Giroux. And we're talking first-round pick, high-quality prospect, and either another prospect or somebody who's bottom 6 type guy. So again, that's what he thinks. Obviously, I could
he's
sit here
more
and be
tapped in than us.
give us the farm, but that's not going to happen. I don't know. I mean, possibility.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
I
Hey,
think
Matt Casey liked our tweet.
good.
He's alive.
There you go.
Hasn't had too many high noons.
I kind of would have liked to have Hammered Casey in here ranting and raving about how he's
Especially
going to
for
pay
Ristolainen.
Ristolainen $9 million a year to keep him.
I'm
Sign
still
up for
holding out hope.
lifelong contract for $9 million. Sorry, I got a little high noon on my vest.
I'm like holding out hope that he does join us here just to, for poops and giggles. But
Full of dirt from last week.
like I tried to do last week when you guys were doing your show and I was down in Mexico.
Right.
Yeah, thanks a lot for cutting me out of that, guys. I appreciate that.
So the 3 little dots like next to the microphone on your picture, there's a kick option, and it was great. Right before we started the show.
Is there?
Yeah, don't
He's
do
going
it.
to kick you.
I'm glad you pointed that out, Hoagie.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Tie a bow on it.
Let's put a bow on it. Hoagie, hit us with your dad joke.
Oh, I got a good one. Give me 1 second here.
I
How
love
good
that we
it's not.
full-blown ghosted you with the joke in the group chat. What was it, like Monday or
Yeah,
Tuesday?
last
Hoagie
week.
puts this joke in the
So
group
mad.
chat. Nobody answered.
I was so mad.
6 hours later, he sends us the punchline.
Oh boy.
All right. What would happen if you ate aluminum foil?
Probably not a good decision. I mean, I don't.
You'd sheet metal.
I get
That's
it.
pretty creative. I like it.
Did you
I'm
come
glad.
up with that one on your own, Hoagie?
No, I heard it from somebody else.
I'm glad
But it's
all
still
3
classic.
viewers stayed for that one.
Same. I'm about to lose one like right about now.
Oh, down to 2. No, I'm kidding. No, fun episode. I think continuing this discussion, new players every week is going to buy us some time until the deadline where things will start happening. Hopefully, centered around Drew. Anyways, Hoagie,
Or
let us know where they're going to be able
Drew.
to find you, man.
Patrick goes
On the Twitter thing.
on the Twitter thing.
On the Twitter. Oh, Thang.
Daily
Sorry.
Lawton fanboy content.
Hey man,
I tweet stuff about Scott Dalton, and I have a poster of him in my bedroom, and I love Scott Dalton.
that's
Apparently, you're Adam Sandler from The Waterboy.
No, every time I hear that, I think of like Scott Malkinson from South Park. I'm Scott Malkinson, John, do your spiel.
Yes. Yeah, you can find this show on all your various podcast listening receptacles, including
Oh boy.
Apple Podcasts,
Come on, man.
Spotify, Amazon Music. I had a moment. All
I
right.
ask you to do one thing every week.
Spreaker, Deezer. What was the one that Casey likes? Pocket Casts, YouTube. All of them. We're there.
Google us.
That's
Ooh,
my words.
Hoagie.
Fucking son of
I think next week Hoagie's going to be doing your spiel. So
Man.
before we get to
Hoagie
that,
just sits there with a clipboard, right? And he's like, it's at the bottom of the screen. Oh, you messed this up. It's like, yeah, but there's a reason why you talk the least, asshole.
looks like Chris Jericho with his list. You just made the list. Anyway, speaking of Chris Jericho, I've got to go watch AEW Revolution because I'm a dork and I love wrestling. So, folks, you can find me on Twitter at PodStreetBob. John's on Twitter at PodStreetGobe. You can find the 4 of us, even Matt Casey, who didn't join us this week, at PodStBullies on Twitter. Check out our affiliates, Flyers High and Wide and 5 Minute Major. Until next week, folks, enjoy watching those hockey games. Not necessarily the Flyers, hockey in general. And we will talk to you then.
Bye now.
Bye now.
Casey somewhere puking cart.